following is a presentation of WLCN 96.3 FM and WLCNonline.com. It is 4 p.m., which means it is time for the 4 p.m. 411. I am Lloyd Kirby with all kinds of buttons to push here. See if I can push the right one. There we go. So it is the first Tuesday of May, which means we have our standing appointment with Mayor of Lincoln, Tracy Welch. So, Mayor, thank you for joining us.
Glad to be here.
As usual.
Thanks.
We were talking off the air, kind of big discussion last night it was last night, as the city tries to hammer out a budget, and I saw significant discussion about devoted to salaries and percentages versus flat increases and things like that.
Yep.
There was no resolution that came of that. Am I correct? I didn't see the whole meeting in its entirety.
No, unfortunately, the council did not end up where we had hoped they would end up. The request was the non-union clerical staff. We would try to continue our approach to bring them up to a fair and equitable salary comparable to what others in their field are being paid. And we were hoping to get it in this year so that we could start to normalize things next year. The council disagreed, and while we didn't get everything that we wanted for them, which was a $4,000 increase for those individuals, the council did compromise after a lot of heated debate on $2,500 for those individuals. I think you could probably say something is better than nothing, but in this particular case, it was a hard pill to swallow because I understand that we have to be frugal with money. We're in a good spot in the city. Those people are part of that success of the city, and I feel they deserved it.
And again, I didn't see the whole meeting in its entirety, but I did hear, believe it was Councilman Bateman perhaps made mention that this year's budget, the grand total is actually about $500,000 less than the previous year's budget.
Yep.
Is that accurate?
That's accurate.
And the discussion of the salaries amounted to like a $19,000, when it was, give or take, was the figure that was sort of in question or being discussed.
Yeah.
So what is the next step for that process as far as where things go from here?
There's a couple options. Let it stand as is, which is traditionally what we do with the council. Some individuals on the council could bring that back up for reconsideration with the council. The mayor has the authority, although I can't remember the last time it was exercised, to veto the council's decision in whole or in part. And so I think we're coming off of that very heated meeting still, and it's still fresh in our minds, and I don't know where we'll end up going with it. But there's still people that were fighting passionately for those individuals to be, paid fairly. Right. And I suspect that we'll see more action out of it.
And so if there are constituents out there, folks in Lincoln who would like to be a part of that conversation, obviously you can call and voice your opinion here, 217-648-5510, the number to call, or you can send us an email, 4pm411@wlcnonline.com. But if folks want to voice information to yourself or to members of the council, I believe the city website has addresses and contact information for all the folks on the council. Is that correct?
Yeah, the city website's updated with the exception of Alderman Eimer and Alderwoman McClellan that were sworn in last night. Otherwise, all of the aldermen, the department heads, the elected officials, myself included, our numbers are on there. So if they have any feedback on that, would love to hear their feedback on it.
And so last night was discussion, but it wasn't actually voted on. That actually takes place at the next meeting. Is that correct?
They actually did vote on it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's what they approved by. There was the original item, and then there was a couple amendments that were made and voted on, and then we ended up on that resolution.
But even though that happened last night, it didn't just start last night. Obviously, there was a big process in getting to that point of having a budget to vote on. So For those who may not be aware, can you kind of tell us what that process is, how that budget that was voted on, how that came into place and was proposed?
Yeah. So every year, Treasurer Conzo and our budget committee meets, and they have these discussions. They talk with the department heads. They they talk with me, and we talk about what the needs are of the departments, including salaries, and then that is packaged up. It's sent to the council, and we have council discussions on it. I will admit that over the last few years, or last several years actually, it used to be gone line by line, and now it's a little bit more streamlined. Some don't necessarily like that because they think it doesn't give them time to digest it. We typically have a draft of the budget out a month ahead of when that's ready, and that's viewable by everybody. So there was some promises that were made, or at least some thoughts that were made on that. When it comes to the budget and salary, I wouldn't say that necessarily ended up the way that we had hoped it would be, but still I'm glad that the girls were able to. I'm sorry, I should not use the term girls. We were scolded. They happen to be all of the for the people that listen, all of the non-union clerical members that are employees of the city happen to be women.
Okay.
So we sometimes refer to them girls, the ladies, the women, not meant to be done in a derogatory manner.
Right.
But those employees, I'm still glad that those employees received a raise of some kind.
Right. Because, I mean, any raise is obviously better than none.
Yeah.
So there was discussion, of course, a lot of it centered on the amount of a raise, whether it should be a percentage type of a raise or a flat amount type of a raise.
Sure.
Did you have any particular thoughts on that?
I got several thoughts on that.
Any you want to share?
Yeah, I'll share them with you. So when you're talking about percentages, that and you're trying to be fair across the board, that is challenging because we have some members of the city or employees that, let's say, get paid $70,000-$80,000. Well, these non-clerical employees, they're making on average 35, 36, some less.
Right.
Well, when you give them a percentage across the board for everybody, 5% of somebody making $80,000 is a lot more than 5% that makes $36,000.
Sure.
And when you look at this stuff on a bell curve, we're trying to make sure that these employees are making fair, competitive wages with other people in their field. And it makes it extremely challenging to do that for those employees when you stick to a percentage. So what we did was proposed that they would get a $4,000 increase, and then the department heads would still be by percentage. To put it into perspective, I went back today and looked. Last year, we had a committee of the whole on April 26th and a voting meeting on May 2nd.
Okay.
In both of those meetings, there was no discussion to be had about the percentages, the numbers, etc. Now, perhaps that was done in the budget meeting prior, a couple weeks prior. Still have to look into that. But last year, department heads across the whole got a 7% increase. Staff got $4,000. So department heads made more, and they're worth it. I'm not saying they're not.
Right.
But this year, we reduced that down a little bit for department heads to be a little fiscally responsible.
Sure.
But we wanted to give the $4,000 to the clerical to continue to get them up to where they need to be.
Right.
And then the intention is next year, get them back down to a normal like 3 to 5%. So that's what we were shooting for. You know, I wouldn't say we weren't successful, but I just think, and I said it last night, I think we could have done better.
Okay. So once again, if you have questions or thoughts on anything with the City of Lincoln, including the budgetary process and the raise issue that we've been discussing, 217-648-5510, the number to call. We're going to go ahead and take our first break, and we will be back with more with Lincoln Mayor Tracy Welch right after this. And we are back on the 4 p.m. 411 with our guest, Lincoln Mayor Tracy Welch. We talked about kind of a thorny topic, I guess you could say, the budget in the first segment. So let's move on to a little bit more, I don't know, happier or something topics, a little bit lighter anyway. Lots of things happening with the warmer weather. We've talked about parks and revamping of parks happening. Actually got a couple ribbon cuttings coming up for two of those parks. Or is it? Are they both considered parks, or one park and one?
Technically they're parks, yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll say two ribbon cuttings for two parks then.
Yep. First one's Melrose. This is the one down there on Adam Street. And if you go down, it's beautiful. It's got all new equipment, a half basketball court with hoop. I mean, we did a remarkable job on that. I think that Ashley Metelko and the Parks Committee did a really good job on that. And then another project that we had was the dog park. Mm-hmm. So this has been years in the making. Right. And so the dog park will be on May 10th at Wednesday. 5 o'clock. Mm-hmm. And then May 8th, Monday, May 8th, will be the ribbon cutting for Melrose Park. So
also at 5 o'clock.
Also at 5 o'clock. Mm-hmm. So we're looking forward to those. Can't wait to see how the community embraces those and uses them, but I know that they'll be well received. A lot of hard work's gone into those parks.
And you've mentioned before on this show that there's sort of a process that the folks who make those decisions are going through in terms of updating parks, that it's not just sort of a willy-nilly, which one's ever favorite, that they're actually going through park by park and determining which ones are upgrades. So do you happen to know what the next phase of the project is?
The next park's going to be Allison Park. It's the park in Mayfair. Okay. And that is going to be a special needs park. And so a lot of thought has gone into not just the normal stuff you see at the park, but there's sensory boards, there's fencing, there's special swings, the colors. We got down to the colors of things that are going in. And so, we just didn't flip through a catalog, order a bunch of stuff, and install it. It was done intentional and with thought. So I think that one's going to be a huge success as well.
And so do you know the timetable on the Allison Park?
I believe they've already ordered the equipment, and some of it's come in. So Melrose just got done. Mm-hmm. Streets and Alleys, and a huge thanks to Streets and Alleys. They're doing a lot of the laying of concrete, and Dog Park's got a water fountain in it. They're working on all that. But I am optimistic that we'll probably see that in the next month or two. Okay. Probably leaning towards the 2 side of that. But we have 2 more parks after that we're going to try to get in. So, a lot of busy work.
Okay. And, of course, all that is just sort of to raise the level, I guess, as far as making Lincoln a more attractive city and town for current residents, future residents, potential residents, and so forth. Along those lines with the keeping the city looking tidy, there's a spring cleanup event coming up. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so this gets confused with the spring cleanup that Scott Turner just did, where we went and we picked up a bunch of trash out of the ditches and cleaned up the community that way. This is part of the contract with GFL that we have, and this is where you can bring in some loose construction materials. The items are actually listed. Cardboard, newspapers, aluminum cans, plastic, metals, furniture. There's some unauthorized or unaccepted materials in there, but you load up, get a friend that's got a truck or whatever, load it up, take it to Streets and Alleys. That'll be on May 20th from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. And if you need special help with that, you've got some stuff, again, call Walt Landers at Streets and Alleys. We'll figure out how to get you helped.
And this, of course, comes on the heels of the electronics recycling, which sounds like by all measures, was a huge success as well.
It was. I think I might botch this up a little bit, but when they brought the TVs in, we put them in these toters that are about the size of a pallet in diameter. Mm-hmm. They're probably 6 to 7 feet tall. We had about 66 of those. Wow. That we filled up with TVs. There was just shy, under 600 people that came throughout the week and donated that material. We don't have the tonnage, but if you were out there and you could see the stuff in the boxes, mm-hmm. you would just be thankful that stuff doesn't end up in our ditches.
Right.
We're still seeing some of those really big projection TVs, mm-hmm. Not so much the tubes anymore. We're getting into the flatter screens, right. which helps a lot with the tonnage. But overall, just a huge success. I'm glad that we can do that and help the residents of Lincoln and Logan County.
Now, is that planned on being like an annual event or every few years, or do you have any I don't know, plans as far as that goes?
Well, no projection, but we plan to do it every year as long as we can, and it's cost effective. It's relatively inexpensive to do that, and as long as the economy allows us to do that in a cost-effective manner, we're going to continue to do it. It's just good for the environment.
So what is the process then? What happens with all those TVs once they are collected by the city?
Well, I got asked that a lot. Now, I don't know all the details, but the company that takes those, they take them to places that tear them open. They get the gold out of the circuit boards, things of value, and then they send those other parts through other recycling processes.
I see.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, we've hit our second break here, so we'll be back here with more with Mayor Tracy Welch. Also want to invite you to tune in tomorrow to the Viewpoint program, 8:15 a.m., hosted by Bill Gossett. Guest will be Betsy Pesch and Josh St. Peters from the Illinois Beef Association. And then here on the 4 p.m. 411 next week, we will have Angie Stolzenberg and Cassie Delaney in the studio. They are with Lincoln Memorial Hospital, but we will have more with our current guest, Tracy Welch, right after this.
When it comes to making plans, you are the best. The same way you plan each detail for those moments. Start planning to protect you and your loved ones from a natural disaster. Protecting your family is the best plan you can make.
The 4 p.m. 411 here with our guest, Mayor Tracy Welch of Lincoln. Once again, if you have questions or comments, 217-648-5510, the number to call, or you can send us an email, 4pm411 at WLCNonline.com. We've been talking about a variety of topics today, opening of some parks, including the dog park, the issue that was wrestled with by the council and council members in terms of the budget and salaries. Something you had talked to me about before on this show was the safety initiative and things happening in the downtown area. For those who who didn't hear that part, first, can you tell us what the safety initiative is, and then a little bit more specifics about what happens and how it helps downtown Lincoln and Lincoln in general?
It has spawned out of some issues that we've been trying to address in the downtown area. If you've been downtown, you know the main facades of the buildings, it's beautiful. I'm glad that the grant program continues to work and we're helping those. But we're trying to look now at the places that aren't looked at as much, and that's the alleys and the little dark corners and stuff like that. And, unfortunately, it happens in every town. This isn't specific to us or unique to us, but we have some locations that need a little TLC. They need to be cleaned up. We need to ensure that, there's no nefarious activity happening in those alleys. And so what we've done is we've started with one alley downtown that just got opened up, and we're trying to clean that one up. We put in some surveillance to see if we could use raw data to pinpoint some of the issues and help us address those issues. So we've started there. We've got a couple other targets we're looking at that I think would be next good steps. And so, that's in a nutshell, that's what it is. We're trying to make people feel safe that walk through these alleys and these dark places, light them up a little bit, and do what we can.
And so when you say you look at the data for that, do you look at what kind of data do you look at? Is it how heavily trafficked the alley is, or what kind of activities you
That's exactly
see?
it.
Okay.
I mean, you can look at the footage on there. You can see at specific times of day what type of activity is going on. So like, for instance, in the early morning hours, people are coming and going to work. About 9, 10 o'clock at night, you start to see people that are out having a few drinks at night and enjoying their evening, stuff like that. That usually goes till, it could go anywhere up till 2 in the morning the next day. And we're really just trying to identify patterns and address some of the activity. I'd like to say that all the things that go on in those dark alleys are good, but they're not. And I think if we can get that cleaned up and improve it, it makes our town look better.
Sure.
It makes the businesses feel safer. There are some of those businesses that have parking in the back, and their employees simply don't feel safe at night. And so we're trying to help improve that as well.
Okay.
So we're just we're just skimming the surface of where this could go, but so far things are moving along nicely.
So right now it's a single location that is sort of your guinea pig, I guess, so to speak, as far as what you're looking at.
Yep.
And then the plan is to look at other, once you figure out a process and what the data tells you and so forth, then sort of implement that in other areas, specifically downtown, or might that expand out into the other parts of Lincoln as well?
I think it could expand out, but right now we're focused on downtown. So what I can tell you is the area specifically we're looking at right now is the alley that sits between Kickapoo and Chicago Street. In the block where Guest House is. So that alley that's behind Guest House, Small Town Creations, we're working on that one. Next target, there is a building that sits next to Alibi. And if you go there, most people don't even see it, but if you go through there, it's not a very friendly looking place. It's got gravel. People go back there and break beer bottles. I mean, there's all kinds of just stuff laid in there, and it's just not presentable or attractive. Well, we have an Airbnb right next to that location.
Oh, wow.
So we're working with that building owner to say, hey, can we make this a safe space or a green space or something that's inviting that could be used by everybody? And so, we're just trying to tackle them one at a time. The alley that goes behind the library, that's another one. The one behind Gazzardo's, those could all use a little bit of TLC. Some need it more than others, but I think once we can get that done, then we can actually start to do the same thing on the square, because things do happen at night on the square. Businesses put tables, chairs, and things out that have not always been treated well. And so it's really just about improving our environment, our community, and making it safer.
And speaking of the square, this has nothing to do with that, although I guess it sort of does in a tangential way. The Third Fridays events will be coming back as well next.
Yeah, May
this month,
19th.
May 19th.
Yep.
I've seen bits and pieces of information out about if folks are interested in setting up a booth or setting up a table. Do you have any kind of where should people go if they want to get more information about that?
Sure. So if you go to the city website under services, there's a page for Third Fridays downtown.
Okay.
And if you go there, you can get all the information about which dates we're doing this year, what the themes are this year, the hours, the bands that are going to be playing. But also there are applications there for people that would like to be a vendor. So just print out the form, send it in. There's also an email address that you can send to the committee and have a communication with them as well. So we've tried to make it as easy as possible. But we are looking forward to Third Fridays again. It's something we look forward to every year, and people love it.
All right. And I believe this year it's May, June, and July.
Correct.
Just those 3 months, but not August.
Yeah, the city will be involved in all three, but June happens to be Nashville Nights, which is that event that takes place with all of the businesses and some of the bar locations downtown.
Right.
So it's not just one band, there's multiple bands. There's just a lot going on.
Sure.
Crowd was huge last year for Nashville Nights, so it'll be fun.
Okay. We were going to talk about businesses as far as Lincoln goes, if there was anything to report there. The ones I typically ask you about, Taco Bell, Burger King, you said there wasn't any really new news to speak of with those?
Yeah, nothing new on that front. I can tell you that the dispensary, we did have somebody come to town, and they have bought the Pizza Hut building, and they're turning that into a dispensary. So we're working with them to make sure it's done, appropriately and in a manner that complements the city, regardless of how people feel about that particular topic.
Right.
There's also a infusion business for non-retail cannabis, and then there's a craft grow facility. So they're starting, which is great, because that's another revenue stream that comes back into the community. And so, I think those would be the big ones. But there are other business activities going on, just nothing to report at this time on those.
Okay. Well, we've reached 4:30, so once again, thanks for being with us, Mayor Welch.
Thanks for having me.
We will see you again, I guess, in June. So once again, we've got, for those of you interested, we've got the two park openings that are coming up, or the ribbon cuttings, rather, I should say. And if my mouse here will cooperate, I'll even put the addresses on the screen for those of you watching. First, the Melrose Park, located at Adams and 13th Street. That one happens Monday, May 8th at 5 p.m. And then the Central Dog Park on 8th Street there. I put 301. I think that's the address of the hospital's exercise pad.
Yep.
That is Wednesday, May 10th at 5 p.m. There will be a ribbon cutting for that. So both of those... improving the community, adding something to the community. So
a little bit at a time.
Yeah, exactly. So once again, thanks to Mayor Welch for joining us. Tomorrow on Viewpoint, Betsy Pesch and Josh St. Peters from the Illinois Beef Association. And next week on the 4 p.m. 411, Angie Stolzenberg and Cassie Delaney will be talking with us about mental health issues, which I believe May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So we'll talk with them next week. As for this week, thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you next time. The preceding program is a presentation of WLCN 96.3 FM and WLCNonline.com.